So today I said, you know what, let's make some steak and potatoes. And what I mean by that is going to be something simple: steak, potatoes, and a little bit something I want to add in there, which is some mushrooms, some shallots with spinach on a cream sauce, which has Parmesan cheese. So if you like basic stuff, this is it. It doesn't get any more simple than this, and I'll show you why. Now the list of ingredients: some steak. You can get any steak you want. The rainbow potatoes is just because of the size and the color, really. I chose baby portobello mushrooms more because they hold up a little bit better than the shiitakes or any other, more delicate mushrooms. And all these other herbs, I recommend you get them fresh if possible, but you can just substitute for dry if you don't have access to them. So let's get these ingredients together, let's prep them up, and let's make some food. Now the potatoes, 30 minutes before you start cutting them, I recommend you put them in some water. That way they kind of rinse off all that dirt that they have when they collect them from the farm. You don't want to get none of that stuff in your food. So that's one of those things that I recommend beforehand. The rosemary, like I said, if you have it fresh, even better. If you have it dry, not a big deal. But I do recommend fresh on this occasion. They just get, more perfumey. The oils, I guess, they just act a little bit different when it's fresh than when it's dry. So I just get a big pan here, something you can put in the oven. Just kind of throw them in there, separate them, and make sure that they're not too crowded. What happens is when potatoes are too crowded, they release some steam when they start cooking, and then the steam is not going to let them develop that crust. Get that nice crunchiness on the outside that we like. And we're okay if it's soft in the center, but the outside, if it's soggy, then it's not really roasted. It's more like boiled, So just keep that in mind. Now for the potatoes, I put them in the oven. I preheat the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I just put them in there for approximately, I'd say 25 to 30 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. Every oven is different, so I don't like to say an exact time because your oven might be faster than mine, or mine might be faster than yours. So that's the reason I say keep an eye on it. When that nice golden color on the outside, it's good to go. Also, every 10 minutes, I like to kind of go in there and start flipping them. That way everything just cooks nice and even and gets a nice color. You might think, how am I going to cook the whole thing through if it's so thick? And by the time it reaches medium or medium well, it's going to be burnt on the edges. Now, that's why you have the oven. So since we already have the potatoes in the oven, we're going to be using some of that heat to also finish off the steak, the cooking process of the steak. Now when it comes to the mushroom, it's very simple. Just get a pan, crank it up to medium heat, add a little bit of olive oil. Once you see that the olive oil is starting to kind of spread in the pan, that means it's nice and hot. Toss it in there, and now season with a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. Not too much. Do not add anything else unless you want to, but in reality you don't need it. Let the ingredients speak on their own. But once you see the mushrooms that they get a little bit, they start to change in color. They kind of get caramelized a little bit. It's a good time to now add the shallots. And the shallots, just cook them till they're a little bit translucent. They kind of release all that flavor and they kind of mingle with the mushroom. And once that's done, now it's time to just deglaze it. Any little bits and particles that stuck to the pan that has a lot of flavor, we want to extract that. Now, time to add the cream. Here I added about 3/4 of a cup. We want to cook the cream here until it starts to basically reduce. We don't want something that's too runny, but we don't want something that is too thick also in consistency. So just kind of, lower it down, put it on low, put it on simmer, add the Parmesan cheese, and just let that stuff just thicken up, and then it's going to be ready for serving as soon as that happens. Once I added the cream, it was like 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes later, and it was already thick enough and ready to serve. Just listen to that sizzle for a moment. I mean, the oven is going to cook it to the correct doneness, but when you cook it in the pan, you get that nice crust that everybody desires. Now we're just gonna put it back in the pan for just a minute so we can add just a little bit of extra flavor with a little bit of butter, some garlic, and some rosemary. And what you're gonna do is just kind of tilt the pan, get the spoon, and kind of spoon that stuff up there, kind of basting the meat with a little bit of flavor. Again, we don't want to get that strong garlic flavor. We don't want to get that strong rosemary flavor. Just enough to kind of help it out, just a little bit. For plating, is very simple. You do it your way. I'm just going to put it at the bottom of the steak because when I cut down, I just want to grab a piece of everything, a piece of potato, a piece of steak, and also a little bit of that, mushroom and cream. Now, I did have a little bit of demi-glace from the day before, so I said, you know what? I don't want it to go to waste, and why not? So I added a little bit on top. You can eat it as is. It's not going to take anything from it, but of course, if you have a sauce like a demi-glace, then hey, you're not going to regret adding that stuff on there.